So as I'm sure everyone is aware by now, back on August 21st, there was a total solar eclipse that was visible in the United States. And before the eclipse, I had published a video showing how I made the solar filters that I was going to use on my cameras to capture the eclipse. So I wanted to make this video as a follow-up to that video to show you the video and images that I got, and also talk about what I thought about the eclipse. But before I talk about the images and the video and what I thought about the eclipse, let me touch on the logistics behind getting to a place where you could see totality. Now, I live in Oregon, so it was fairly easy for me to get to a place to see the total eclipse, but my house is located in a spot where it only got 99% coverage, so not close, but not totality. And I could have easily have driven into McMinnville or into Salem, Oregon, and gotten up to near 2 minutes of totality. But I wanted to get as much as I possibly could, as much as was practically possible. So I actually went to Mitchell, Oregon, and actually went to a campground called Priest Hole. It's a public camping area. It's all dry camping. And I actually camped out there for 4 days with my two of my sons. And which was nice. It was nice to be able to do that. It was nice to get the camping trip in. It's been a long time since I've been camping like that. But the reason why I didn't just go into Salem, I suspected that Salem and Madras and Prineville would be very crowded. And it turns out that they were. Prineville was probably, I think, as far as what I heard, among the worst places in terms of just the number of people. They were talking the scale of that event that they were having there, because it was a music festival and stuff like that as well, being something akin to Woodstock. And I knew Madras would be crowded. And so that informed my decision to go to some place where I didn't think a lot of people would go, and where I could get there without having to go near the places where I thought the most people would be in terms of traffic and stuff like that. And it turns out that Mitchell was a pretty good place to go. It was a 4.5 hour drive from where we live. We left at 5 o'clock on Friday morning, and I actually started, people that knew that we were going to be going started, telling me, man, have you heard about the traffic? This was on Thursday. Have you heard about the traffic? It's, it's already a parking lot out there and this, that. And I looked, and I felt okay, because I knew the traffic that was being reported on was like on the 26th and stuff like that, and places that were going towards Prineville and towards Madras, Oregon. So I actually specifically took, and it was a little bit longer of a drive, but we went 84 and then down the 19 to get to Priest Hole, because that took us up, over, and then back down around Madras and Prineville. So going there, we actually had zero traffic. It took us exactly the 4.5 hours that Google Maps told us that it was going to take. And the campground itself was not as crowded as I expected it to be. I would suspect, I have no hard numbers on this, but I would suspect that at least in terms of what it felt like, that it didn't feel like it was any more crowded than it would be if it was a long weekend and people went to go camp out. So Priest Hole worked out in that it wasn't too crowded getting there, and it wasn't too crowded there, and leaving wasn't too bad. It took us twice as long to get home. It took us about 8 hours to get home, because coming back on the 19, we hit some traffic. But it wasn't too bad. The traffic was never not moving. We were never in a parking lot. It was always moving. We may have only been moving at about 2 miles an hour, but we were always moving, which I think makes it a little bit better. Because just sitting there, that's where you're going to lose your mind. But if you're moving, you're at least moving. So when I got home, my wife, who didn't go because she doesn't do camping, she asked me if it was worth it, and I emphatically said that it was. And I don't want to diminish the experience of anyone else, but if you saw the partial eclipse, that's awesome. I mean, that is an awesome thing. Even if you got, especially if you got up to close to the 99% that we got at home. But seeing totality is completely different. And the only thing I can say to convey how awesome it is to say, if you can see one, if you ever get the chance to see one, take it. You have to see it. I mean, it is one of the most, if not the most amazing natural phenomenon that I've ever seen. And you have to see it. Pictures don't do it justice. Video doesn't do it justice. There's not a description that I can come up with that would convey how awesome it is to see totality. The 2 minutes that we had of totality felt like 10 seconds, right? At the point that, you know, you're supposed to take off your filter like 20 seconds before totality, right, off your camera, and then adjust your exposures and stuff like that to get different images and try to get like Bailey's beads and all that. I took the filter off and I got a couple of shots, and then I almost completely forgot about the cameras, because during totality, it's just, you just want to look at it and take it in. And at one point, my son said, "Hey, you know, the video camera's not pointed at the Eclipse anymore." I'm like, "Okay, adjust the camera." So you have to see it. If you ever get the chance to see totality, take it. It is well worth it. I don't think that I'm being hyperbolic or I'm exaggerating it. People that I've talked to, even people that don't like care about this sort of thing, right, in terms of the science or anything like that, have, you know, conveyed that same message, is if you have to see it, and if you get a chance, take it. So this clip is from my GoPro, and I set it up just because I thought it would be neat to get that transition from day to night and back. And it also did a pretty good job, even though it was just in automatic mode. So it does try to correct, and you can actually see that as it tries to correct the color and the exposure and stuff. But it did a pretty good job of capturing the sort of that color change that you can see during there is the eclipse progresses and stuff like that. So And finally, these are the pictures that I was able to take of the eclipse. I took about 200 pictures. Now, I was bracketing the exposures, so for each press of the shutter, I was taking 3 images. I was taking one at the exposure the camera was set at, one above that, and then one under, just to make sure that you get at least something that's usable. And these are the ones that I feel like came out the best. Now, the last image is a composite of 3 different exposures, and the reason I did that is because each exposure shows you a piece of the corona, but when you combine them, you actually get the entire picture. And the last image is what I feel like the corona actually looked like if you were actually to be there. So.
Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.